Alrighty, calling the meeting to order at 7:06. Shall we start with the pledge? We could.
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so just to kind of show you who is here, we have Larry Weinberg, Walter Blos, Brad Widman, Colette Fallon, Chris Dunn, and Kevin Boyle. I see your iPhone is logged in.
He's
So
got a drink in his hand. I'm going to be very.
we are full board tonight. And we'll get started. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Brad, second. In favor? All right. So let's jump right in with our usual dam update. The dam update, right? So for those of us who join us here monthly, you know that in February, the Orange County DPW provided an update on the results of the ongoing inspections and testing performed on the new dam structure. During the inspections, DPW identified a through wall leak of about 8 to 10 gallons per minute in the old section of the 24-inch drain pipe. So the pipe that goes all the way through the bottom of the dam from the 24-inch sluice gate. So this was discovered via a closed circuit television inspection, basically a snaked camera, and a dam engineering consultant was hired by DPW to further evaluate and determine the significance and the options for repair if necessary. So we have waited and we finally got back a memorandum with a review of the findings. So I have those to share tonight. So basically a small section of the pipe had deteriorated and we see water infiltrating through, which we knew. And because the seepage is occurring upstream of the impervious core wall, it does not appear to be carrying sediment through the dam. So there's not an immediate threat to our dam. And that's what we would be concerned about if we saw sediment coming through that pipe or anything more than water. So we were given some remediation options. There's basically 4 of them, and I'm going to talk about them all now. Again, if you have questions, chat box, please don't unmute, and we'll do our best. So the first one is monitoring, and this consists of ongoing monitoring of the condition of the pipe through regular videoing. Inspections would be performed at least annually just to document any worsening of the leak in the pipe. This needs to occur no matter what. So we're going to continue to monitor this leak. In terms of actual remedial action, there is slip lining, which is a pipe insert. And how that works is you would push or pull a slightly smaller pipe into the existing pipe and then grout around it. The second one is a cured in place pipe, which is a plastic cured in place pipe liner. It's similar to slip lining that I just described. After it is installed, it is cured into place using one of several techniques that forms it to the shape of the existing pipe. And then the final one being sleeve or banding. And this was when a mechanical sleeve could be installed within the existing pipe at the damaged location. Mechanical seals comprise a sleeve that's adhered to the interior of the host pipe by a mechanical interlock and sometimes a chemical adhesive. The mechanical seal designs require manned entry for installation, and this would only mitigate localized areas of the pipe, so monitoring would still need to continue if this is the option that was selected. The following options have been completely eliminated. Spray lining, so spraying of cement mortar mix or epoxy resin against the inside of the wall is not recommended for significant embankment dams. It cannot ensure a long-term watertight barrier and has a short service life, so we cannot spray line it. We cannot replace the entire pipe. Removal and replacement would be demolition of the dam structure, so we can't do that. And decommissioning. So the reason that we can't eliminate the pipe and decommission it completely is because the DEC requires our lake to be able to be emptied in 14 days if necessary. So if we decommissioned this pipe and just use the other 18-inch pipe that exists, we would not meet that requirement. So we cannot decommission the pipe either. So in summary, we'll definitely be doing continual monitoring of the pipe annually, which will cost approximately $5,000 a year. And potentially in the future, slip lining was the recommendation from the engineer. Access would be needed downstream to avoid dewatering. So I'll say that again, to avoid dewatering the lake. So we're not going to be emptying the lake in order to do this. It would cost approximately $200,000. So whenever we decide to do it, so we're discussing ways that it could potentially be funded, and we're figuring that out. But it is not an immediate need and may not be for years. So we have time to make the decision and explore all of our options in the meantime, but the lake will not be emptied in order to fix this problem. So we will continue to monitor. We're going to work with the DPW to get a plan in place and hopefully have more information for everybody before the next meeting on what we want to do to go forward with it. But we know we have to monitor. And it could be something that isn't a problem for 50 years, or it could be something that's a problem that has to be dealt with in 5. So we're trying to get a little bit of better sense of that. Any additions?
Good job. The big thing with it, the 2 steps we're going to follow right now will be monitoring, and then if necessary, go with the slip line. But as Erica said, that'll be down the road. The monitoring itself, although there's a cost with it, Erica, that'll be performed by DPW. Is that correct?
I believe it would be bid out by DPW. I don't think it would be conducted. But
Okay, because it's going to be an annual monitoring.
oh, the monitoring.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the slip lining.
No, not slip lines, just the monitoring. That'll be done by the DPW. And then the slip line will go out to a contractor bid if we ever get to that point, which we may or may not get to that point.
All right, so if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. We'll do our best to answer those questions now. If we can't, I'm happy to get back to folks. But the good news is that we will not be dewatering the lake in order to fix this pipe. I think that was the big question on our minds. We had a good sense that it wouldn't be the case, but it's really nice to hear it officially. So, do you have a question?
No,
Okay.
that's putting it for the water.
Got it. All righty.
In the refrigerator.
So that's where we are with the question about the dam leak pipe. Now that kind of spills right over to lake health. So Walter, you want to talk a little bit about lake health?
Sure. Is that a pun when you say it spills over to it?
Spills right over, pun intended.
Bad pun. Okay. For the lake health, first part we're going to talk about is lake treatments. The contract was awarded for the 2022 season to Pond and Lake Connection. I did speak with them today. They're in the process. They submitted all the applications up to the DEC for doing applications. He's checking on status. Right now, we're not in a position at all where we need to do any treatments. We're not sure if and when we'll need to do treatments. But right now, the applications are out there. The company's aligned. So we're ahead of the game, ready to go with that. So that's all good. Second part has to do with, I'm going to talk about Pond and Lake Connection. In 2021, we had a company come out and cut down, treat the cattails and also cut the cattails. We had some questions and concerns regarding the floating debris up in specifically in the north end. I personally did a couple tours around the lake, looked at it myself. In my opinion, the lake looks better than it ever has, which is really, really good. With the exception up there on the north end, there's a couple of shore lines up by reserve. I guess it's reserve 5. Up in that area, it's a kind of, if the floating cattails are in that area. I reached out to Pond and Lake Connection, asked them if they have any recommendations, what we can do. They did provide us the option of, they have an amphibious vehicle that'll actually go out there and collect the debris, put it onto the shoreline, and then we'll have Rosini Landscape, and I guess we'd have them pick it up if we choose that we want to go that direction. Results from the 2021 made, in my opinion, made it significant improvements in as far as the treatment and mowing went. That was really good. And the recommendation to do the amphibious vehicle to clean it is about $3,500 a day. So the question, I guess, at this point to the board is, do we want to move forward with Pond and Lake Connection to hire them to remove some of the floating debris up in the north end at $3,500 a day?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do we know approximately how many days it would take them to do?
They haven't come out and assessed the scope. It'd be kind of up to us. For my assessment, if all we do is focus up there on the north end, it could be done within days.
Okay.
And the way it would work, although they don't own the equipment, it would be, the contract would be with, we'd ask Pond and Lake Connection, who we have the contract with, they would be coming out and doing the service.
Okay.
Answer.
Now, the removal operation would be different than what they did before, where they just chopped and mulched. This would actually be a physical removal.
It's an amphibious vehicle, almost looks like he sent me a picture. It looks like the same vehicle, except the front part of it actually has a track that goes in and looks like a forklift with many things.
Combine.
Exactly, but it lifts all it up and they bring it over to the shore and then they dump it on the shore. So yes, looks like the same vehicle, but it's not.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. So any more questions from the board on that?
As far as the cost goes, is that something, if we were to do multiple days, is that a negotiable price or is that just a solid?
That's a solid rental price for the vehicle. They're not, it is what it is. It's $3,500 a day. There's probably no half days.
Your feeling is that from what you've evaluated, that you think it could be done in one day? And if not, we would reevaluate from that point?
Exactly. That's the way you start. You go with one day and you say, how are we making out, and then move forward with it.
And are they available to get onto this thing?
We did speak about that specifically because of the standpoint, what happened last year. It was like Erica pointed out the other day, it's like you put the gun up, you get your sights on what you're going to shoot. Next thing you know, by the time they say pull the trigger, the target's 40 miles down the road. So we don't want to get caught up in that again. So we've got to move quick if you want to do it, because otherwise the cattails will sink and you're going to lose the opportunity. So.
My opinion is, based on the information we received from a few of the residents in the north end, I think for $3,500, it would be both a useful and a morale booster for the north end residents to go ahead with that, in my opinion.
Okay, Chris?
There's been an understanding also that these plants are also good for the lake. So I'm sure the question would be out there, would we be looking at a complete, as much as we can, removal, eradication, or a harmonious situation?
The answer to that is we're only removing the dead floating debris.
Right.
We're not going to go after any more live cattails. There's only the floating ones, which will eventually sink and actually to your nutrient loading, which will impact your algae. So it's actually a good thing for the lake to take out the floating debris. Okay. Eric has shown a picture of the equipment to the board right now.
No, I know, but it was Pond and Lake Connection.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, I think
Sounds
it's
like-
worth pursuing.
the board's on board, no pun intended, to move forward with that.
Yes, please.
I will contact upon the Lake Connection, see if what's the soonest we can go forward with that. Okay.
Great.
Next, any more questions from the residents on the treatments for the lake?
I see that we have some dam questions, so I'll let Wally finish with Lake Health and then I'll address the dam leak questions.
Okay. The next part is there's multiple companies we deal with. The first one was Pond and Lake Connection. That's the company that's going to be doing the treatments for us this year. The next one is Northeast Aquatics. Just to give a little background, they were the company we initially hired to do the assessment on the vegetation out in the lake bed to determine would that be a plus or a minus, or do we need to do something with that? That was that company. And then subsequent to that, we had them out here to do a study for us and do some sampling on our dissolved oxygen and our nutrient loading in the lake. They're very, very scientific, very technically competent company. They're excellent at what they do. In 2021, they provided an initial assessment in June, and then later on in December, they provided a proposal with recommended actions in December 2021 for what we should be doing to improve our lake management and as well as our watershed. The watershed is all the stuff that comes into our lake, the streams, the storm sewer pipes, all that, but it all adds negatively in some fashion to the lake. So what their study does, it says, what can we do to prevent the negative things from coming into our lake to improve it, so we're not being reactionary. So they did that, and they provided us a whole bunch of recommendations. Subsequent to that, we had a phone call with them this past week, and they provided more updates on it, and the consultation went well. We talked about the need for our budget, what they're recommending, the planned services, how they'd be able to support us in 22 and 23, actually, the recommended equipment that we would need for them to be able to do what they do. And then we also talked about fishery stocking, because they do monitor the quality of the water, if you will, in the lake. And we'll talk about fishery stocking in a minute. But the concern with the fishery stocking is the dissolved oxygen. Will the fish die when we put them in? And we want to make sure we're just not throwing money to the wind. And any insights for using DEC grant money. The cost of the recommended services from Northeast Aquatics was about $17,000. And with that, it's about a year and a half's worth of studies where they're going to come out here and do a whole bunch of samples, and they're going to help us diagnose our lake to say where the problem's at. The cost of the monitoring equipment for them to be able to do that part, we would buy the equipment and own it. That's about another $7,000. That's temperature loggers, conductivity loggers, dissolved oxygen loggers, and then the buoys and the line floats to secure that. And then there's about $3,800 worth of lab fees. All that being said, it was about $34,000. What that does, it brings in experts, if you will, to help with our lake management to improve the quality of our lakes. We can, to a certain degree, move away from just putting chemicals into the lake all the time to try to manage our lake. It's like going upstream to fix the problem rather than fixing when it gets here. And we're going to talk about that later on when we get talking about the sewage treatment plant associated with the local school here. So the question on this now to the board again is, we want to move forward with securing the services for lake management of Northeast Aquatics for 2022. Any questions, comments on it?
Having participated in those calls with you, Wally, I agree with you that, particularly considering it's a new lake, the more information that we have to inform the lake treatments, the better. Looking at the total cost of this is significantly less than the herbicide and algicide treatments over and over and over again. I think we should move forward. That's just my opinion. I think we should move forward with that.
So there is a cost benefit associated with what Erica said there, is that the better control we get of our lake, the less we have to put in as far as the cost of chemicals, and the cost of applications for chemicals is very expensive. So ultimately this could pay for itself or help to lower our expenses, where by lowering the cost of the chemicals actually helps pay for this in the long run.
And it also avoids those, if we do algicide treatments, it makes the lake essentially unusable to residents for a period of time after those treatments are applied. So this would make the lake more available and accessible. I think it would help us mitigate costs over time. And if I understood the representatives from Northeast Aquatic well, they'd also help us to advocate about our watershed.
Correct. They would actually talk to the DEC. They'll be talking to the town of New Windsor. They'll be talking to the town of Cornwall. They'll be talking to the local schools and helping them get better control. Do you have any?
And also potential availability of grants helping us with those possibilities, to get funds for equipment, more testing, or treatment, more knowledge.
That's an important part there. Chris mentioned is that there was a large grant that was out there many, many years ago, which kind of died on the vine to a certain degree. And then we drained our lakes, so we weren't able to utilize that grant. We refilled in 2021. We got a extension, but unfortunately the extension runs out here in, I think it's June or July of this year now, June, which their Northeast Aquatics is going to help us try to resurrect that, use that money, but it's a matching grant, meaning that if hypothetically it costs $10,000 to help do the service that Northeast Aquatics is going to do, we'd have to pay $5,000, and then the grant pays $5,000 of it. But that's for dealing with terrestrial invasive weeds.
If I may add, as Chris brought up before, we've known in the past through negotiations that to get further state and federal grants, you need to have what's known as a management plan, which I'm assuming Northeast NEA can help us to establish, because that's always been a stumbling block when it comes to other things. But I want to caution on one thing. If we bring them on board for 2022, I think we're talking 2022 or 23.
In 2022 into 2023.
Okay. We have what we have. I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think we're going to see an immediate decrease in the need for treatment to avoid algae buildup and vegetation for the coming year, which we're already budgeted for, so that's really not an issue. But don't think that this is going to be a cure-all because it's a long-term approach, not a short-term.
Correct. To your point, we're coming back to that prevention, detection, and correction. We don't want to always be in the correction mode where we're knee-jerking to go fix something. Prevention is the long-term fix of managing things properly, just like your body too. You know, eat right and take care of it, and you're not going to have to go to the doctor and get a bypass.
Sure.
Don't take it personally.
And on top of what Waller's saying, you can do both at the same time. You know, you can work on problems.
One short-term, one is long-term.
And yes, and be preventative.
I just wanted to throw the caveat in there that I say, oh, we're not going to need any chemicals anymore.
No, that's not
That's
true.
short-term.
That's correct. Yep. Okay, Chris, anything else to add from?
Specifically from NEA?
Yeah, from their call with NEA.
No.
Colleen, do you have anything?
I'm okay with that, the cost and having the equipment.
Okay, you're good? Sure. Okay, is Kevin Boyle good?
He's not commenting.
Not commenting.
Uh-oh.
I want to see your hands now, Kevin.
Kevin, if you speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay. Any comments from any residents we have to address right now?
Oh, would you say, I'm sorry, Beth?
What is budgeted? This is not.
This would be for 2023. Some of it was budgeted for this year, and that's what we would work with within this year. Yep.
And if I were to add, and I guess it's foreshadowing about what I'm going to speak about in a little while, what I will speak about will kind of support this as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why we want
Oh, we definitely need it.
and better planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing in the chat box questions are still regarding the leak, so I'll
Okay.
address it after.
Do we need a
Okay.
motion on this?
No.
Yeah, that was my question for a motion. Do we agree to move forward with it?
Good question, sorry. Before, when they clean the lake, that was the thing I was going to ask about, when they clean the lake and they put it on the shore, do they carry it away?
And this particular one, no.
No. I
Yeah.
don't know.
But we do have a landscaping contract, just like we did with the volunteer events that we had last year. So the landscaper that we have contracted, also we have an additional like hourly rate that we can pay them to come and dispose of it, and we pay the disposal fee if necessary.
Good question. The specific areas that we're looking at targeting right now, it's right next to a reserve. So it'd be pulled out of the lake and just put onto the land, the bank of the reserve area, which the landscaper then could take it away from there.
We should need a lot of paper bags.
Oh, yeah, or a big bonfire.
No, we just did this last meeting. No.
Larry, till May
Or
1.
track that.
Hmm.
14, I'll burn it.
Okay, let me keep going here. Next topic is fishery stocking. We've been doing a lot of discussions with multiple hatcheries over the last couple of months. Specifically, one hatchery dedicated themselves to providing a lot of help and insights. That was Hickling. They did a great job providing us a lot of insights to move forward with our plan. The current status right now is, in my opinion, we're a little bit behind on it. We started by getting the restocking permit in place with the DEC in January. That was done in time. We talked to multiple hatcheries. That was all done in time. Right now, we're at the stage of we're waiting for DPW to send out what's called a request for bid, because the price for restocking the fish is going to be about $20,000. because it was above a certain dollar value, they had to go out to 3 companies. It went out to 3 hatcheries. One of those hatcheries is Hickling, so I hope they actually get it because they provided a lot of insights to it. That went out last week. We did a short turnaround bid on it. We expected it back this week with the anticipation of being able to award the contract out by the end of this week. Once awarded, we're just going to follow the plan as designed with the way we'll restock it, not to repeat everything from the previous meetings, but we did a look at what fish were in here in the past. We're not trying to introduce anything new. We're sticking with what's native here for this lake. We talked to the DEC based on their previous studies. We decided we're going to go with fathead minnows as the food source, largemouth bass, crappies, and yellow perch. The way we'll do it is you got to put the food source in first to get it going, and there already is some food source in here. But we'll put a delivery of minnows in as soon as we get approval with this. And then you wait about 2 to 3 weeks to give them a chance to adapt and establish in the lake. And then you put in the largemouth bass and the crappies. Instead of going with a smaller fish, we decided to go with a less amount, but a larger fish, 6 to 8 inch, which what that does for you, they spawn this year. So right away, you're getting eggs out of the larger fish, and that actually helps propagate our goal of trying to restock the lake right away. And then for the fall restocking, we'll do the yellow perch. You have to do those in the fall. You don't do them in the spring. And preceding that, we'll do another load of minnows directly before putting the perch in. And the total cost, well, they're going out for bid. We expect to have the bids back, like I said, by the end of this week, and hopefully start moving forward with it next week. That's it, pending any questions.
Yeah, Northeast Aquatic was also kind of on the call, very useful in giving us information about fishery stocking as well. So it's great to see that, all of the entities can kind of work together. So I feel like there's a lot of balls in the air at once, but they all have to work in tandem.
Correct.
So
Yeah, Northeast Aquatics is a great resource company. They're one lady that helps us out. Hillary, she's excellent at the water chemistry knowledge and lake management, and knows all the authorities and the challenge, the strings you got to pull. And AJ, he's incredibly good with the fish part of it. So they're a really good resource to work with.
Question. Now, if we're putting largemouth bass and crappies in the spring,
Yep.
Maybe it's been mentioned before, my memory is rather poor sometimes, that are we going to restrict fishing for this summer?
Yes, well, it's gonna remain as a catch and release because of the PFAS in the lake. We don't know what the status of it is.
And again, I plead ignorance here, but I would worry, maybe full needlessly, that even a catch and release to a spawning fish will inhibit. I mean, does the hatchery feel that there is a need to totally not have fishing at all this summer?
No, they didn't say.
Okay.
No. No, but they didn't say that at all, but they did say it's really good that you're gonna do catch and release.
Good. Okay.
Wally, I have a question.
Okay.
Do we expect that this would be ongoing? Like next year, we would also do some restocking, or it would be a one and done?
It's based on insight we had from Northeast Aquatics. They felt it'd be pretty much, you just don't put together a plan to keep putting fish in. They felt more from the standpoint of you want to take a look at where you stand next year, do a sampling and say, where are you at? I personally believe through my discussions with all the hatcheries that this is adequate right now to keep it going where it needs to go, and you won't have to do any future restocking unless we ever got into the need to drain the lake again.
Don't say that. Great. Awesome.
Okay.
Any question, how much money was in the memorial fund for fish restocking? So there was a memorial fund for fish restocking, and we are working with the individual who donated that money. What we were also able to do was a memorial bench was put in Beaver Dam Lake, as well as a plaque, and they've asked that information be kept anonymous and not shared. But if you know who it is, you can reach out to them directly, please. Great idea, but how do we plan to monitor the catch and release? So there's signage up all over the lake that it's actually a hazard to your health to eat the fish. in Beaver Dam Lake due to the PFAS. So one would hope that for self-preservation, people would not catch and consume.
Yeah, the answer is the same as how do you expect people to do the speed limit? It's rules, regulation, you expect people to comply, do they always? You can't be out there to regulate them all the time.
But we do have additional signage to put up. So we can make sure it's loud and proud after we restock.
Another small reason that we want to be sure that people who are supposed to be here are the people who are here because they'll at least understand the rules. So outside folks might not understand the rules because they're not commonly exposed to what we're doing here.
That's a good point.
So another reason as to why we want to be diligent in keeping it and to our private use as it's been coined.
Okay.
That's a good point. We got to tighten up on the registered boats on your questions.
Okay. Right.
Anything else?
Fishery stocking.
Okay.
All right. Chris, I'm going to toss it to you to talk about sewer and municipality updates. I'm going to put this mic a little closer to you and I'm going to turn.
Easier if I move?
Oh, that's okay. It should pick you up as long as you speak with your
Use my teacher voice.
Use your teacher voice.
Use my gymnasium voice. Good evening, everybody. So just to bring you up to speed, in our notes, we have history of calls that we've been making just to do some chasing around research regarding the sewer systems in Beaver Dam, New Windsor specifically, in Cornwall. Just to educate myself, being I've only come on in the past few months, I even called Blooming Grove, and there are no pump houses or any pipes that go to Blooming Grove's sewer system within Beaver Dam. So we're strictly speaking about New Windsor and Cornwall. So just to update you on what I kind of just spoke about, calls I had been making. In my own yard on the 13th of January, there was a sewer leak at night that the sewer department responded to. In the midst of that, just trying to figure out what was going on and why it took so long for them to come. Turns out that the landline was down and the system wasn't calling the sewer department fast enough to respond to the blockage. Good, as I said last time, it's good to know that since just about that time, New Windsor brought upon a SCADA system, which is like real computer monitoring, so they know exactly if anything's going wrong, there's an alert that goes on. So that leak that night, theoretically, should not ever happen again. John Agito, who's the superintendent of sanitation, spoke to him several times. Started to call him back as I was doing some investigative, research, came upon, and there's others that know that Little Britain School in Washingtonville Central School District, although the school is located in New Windsor. Now, drum roll, I think I said this last time, they are not on a sewer line at all. And that question was asked directly to the superintendent of sewer in Windsor. And John said, no, if I knew about it, then I would, if they were, I would know about it. So just going through some more documents with the DEC, making calls, asking around. Basically, I got to a FOIL permit, for a FOIL request, which you find out what that is and you put the FOIL request in. They give you 2 to 3 weeks. DEC, once they gather the documents, I don't know why it would take 3 weeks, but I wanted to see the permits. What permits do they have? So Little Britain School, for the last from 2001 is when it's on record. It's on record with a renewal every 5 years to have a self-contained treatment system for their septic system. So you have an entire elementary school on a septic system alone. Now, in a moment, Eric will be able to put up the map, and this you can put it up now. But so the map that we're going to show you is an aerial view. And I was fortunate enough to have come upon this. Our former president of the board, Lawrence Rossini, actually did all this work for him. And as you can see right in front of you, it's an aerial view of Little Britain School, dictating where this, how close the sewer line is to the school, and that's a nearby development. It's at the corner of the sewer. The system, the pump house is at the corner of Barrett Drive, Clark Street. And Little Britain theoretically would not need that much pipe to connect to the sewer. Now, there are no records prior to 2001, and that was asked. I actually had a phone conversation with the director of operations at Washingtonville, and Paul Needstad stated, and that's why I wrote it down. I said, does the sewage filtration building still exist? And the answer was, it has been removed. And then I said, has anything new been built? And the answer is no. So if you go by the permits, and the last permit expired actually just only 2 years ago, they are out of compliance. So they're out of compliance with the permit. And then the question is, you know, we ask, is this something that should even still exist? Should a school still be on a septic system? After speaking to John at New Windsor Sewer, you know, he stated this is a common practice in rural areas. When Little Britain School was more in a rural area before the development was put in there, and if anybody recalls the name, it's right there off 207. It's condominium homes right there at Barrett Road, but it's right down the road from, it's going westerly on 207. I believe that the sewer was put in for them, but preceding this, Little Britain had no access to a sewer. So to jump right to it, and I'm going to just read directly from Mr. Rossini's summary, and this is, and he states this. This is a 12-page letter that he submitted to the DEC, and he recommended that a complete decommissioning of the entire facility be in order, that the DEC reject their application to renewal, and that Washingtonville should be working to connect the school to the nearby New Windsor sewer system at the corner of Barrett Road and Clark Street. This and the remaining 11 pages substantiating the decrepit nature of the building, the unkept nature of any of it, suggested that alone says that they shouldn't have a permit.
What was the date of this letter?
It was May of 2021. So having a conversation only days ago with Washingtonville Central School District, the answer has been given to myself 3 times, and it's, we're working closely with the DEC. We're working closely with the DEC, and then finally, we're working closely with the DEC to obtain the proper paperwork, not fix it. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions. And we are actually about to discuss more with the DEC themselves, because this letter, and if I go back to it and I can read a little bit further, this was sent to Michael Schaefer, who is in Albany. He's in charge of permits for the state and our region for the DEC. Dear Mr. Schaefer, I am submitting these 12 pages of comments, paragraphs, and data for inclusion in the public record for the proposal renewal of Speedy's permit, New York 0265733, and then there's more numbers I won't read after that. Please be advised that I have submitted several FOIL requests, which is what I did myself, and I obtained these documents myself. So everything that Mr. Rossini says in this, I will corroborate. And then it says, most importantly, the monthly wastewater facility operations reports required by the Speedy's permit to be filled by the DC Regional Water Engineer for the period from January 1st, 2019 to February 27, 2021 were not available. I also found that to be true. So I did not find any recent records that will also lead us to believe there's no current permit that is held. Given the absence of the monthly reports as well as the troubling physical conditions shown in the attached photographs, it would be inappropriate for New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to renew this permit without first conducting a thorough on-site inspection and a complete audit of the operating records. This facility should be decommissioned and the wastewater discharge into the main tributary of Beaver Dam Lake eliminated. The wastewater from the school should be directed to the existing municipal sewage collection system, which is located nearby, just to the east and west of the school property. Now, I was in the midst of doing my own research. When I came upon this, I pretty much needed to stop because, as you can see, this is pretty black and white. And once we give everybody time to digest the meaning of this, I would hope that we can get our local governments involved. Furthermore, the summary, if I just may read the rest of the summary. This system has reached its end of useful life. It is poorly maintained and should be decommissioned for the reasons that I've explained in the following pages and are illustrated in the attached photographs. The conditions shown in the photos alone should be reason enough for the DEC to reject this renewal. And there happens to be 7 criteria: end of the useful life, phosphorus removal, which it does not do. And as we all know, phosphorus coming into the lake is basically the reason why we have algae growths to begin with. So, and this is also the reason why I gave pause earlier when we were speaking of the lake health, because this here, if we can agree, is a major possible potential major cause for any problem that we have had and could continue to have. Because one thing that I have learned from speaking also to Hillary, the limnologist at Northeastern Aquatics, is that these pollutants stay in the sediment and they will be there for years to come. Now, we're actually in the process, the board speaking about testing for storm overflow and test what happens when we have a heavy rain. That information regarding this facility itself is yet to be obtained, but I think you also can ascertain that it's not going to be any good. At the moment, any questions before? Does anybody have any?
Just a quick one, Chris.
Yeah.
Good job explaining that.
I have.
So, long story short is basically we have a concern with the sewage from a local school getting into a creek which flows directly into our lake. And that is supported by what Northeast Aquatics had highlighted to us in their June report, that overall they are particularly concerned about potential of raw sewage overflow. The lake's historical problems with excessive nitrogen and phosphorus indicate raw sewage may play a key role in the cyanobacteria blooms. So they're pretty much support exactly what you're saying. So to your point, if we can get control of that, that will help with our overall lake chemistry.
Exactly, and being my history with having a leak on my own property, I dove straight into finding out what can happen when this goes into the lake. And so immediately, once it just seemed logical to kind of follow the clues. So at the moment, Washingtonville seems to, the only other response that I got when I asked about the status of the permit was that we hope to hear more in a month's time. So answers were vague. I pose to everyone that we move forward and find out a lot more.
Okay, so I think we all agree that there's definitely a potential problem coming in from there. So what's our next step and what's our top 3 actions we're going to take?
Well, at the moment, just trying to hear back from the DEC specifically, and hopefully the Albany office, a person that I was just passed on to the other night. Is that a New Paltz office person? Michael?
He's DEC.
He's DEC, but in, you know which office?
Oh, that was, what's his name?
Because there's Tarrytown, there's
New Paltz.
New Paltz, yeah, so in the New Paltz office, so, and at the moment, it's we're just, waiting to hear back their response. But obviously, Mr. Rossini put a very convincing argument forth, but not hearing back from the DEC, is it in limbo? They still do not possess a permit. So what's the status? We're yet to hear.
Vaccination is the best way to protect your child. Doctors recommend the vaccine for children to shield them.
Public service.
You're being good. Okay, good update, Chris, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, so.
Where was it?
Alright. It's a big issue. I appreciate all of the time spent looking into those things, and I look forward to hearing kind of where it goes from here. So thank you. So this is actually let me see if they're on the call. They are not. Residents asked about this the last meeting, so I'm happy to follow up about this. This is the USDA Goose Management Program. So the goal of this program is to manage the Canadian geese on the lake. So they are an invasive species. They're a hazard to health and safety of the residents, to vehicles, and to aircraft. So this program began in 2012. It costs absolutely nothing to the taxpayers of Beaver Dam Lake. It's funded by the New York Air National Guard through an aviation safety grant to the USDA. So this program works by essentially the US representatives from the USDA come out and they put some oil on the goose eggs so that they don't hatch. And it helps to eliminate the goose population. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds of geese fecal matter that is not going into the lake every year. It is tremendous amount. I could not believe it. I was shocked. If you want to see some information, we have some great report right on the Orange County website for Beaver Dam Lake. I can link it to this YouTube video and it will show you exactly the poundage of goose species that were going into the lake prior.
And there's a number on the board indicating poundage versus nitrogen and algae growth.
Yeah, so it was essentially fertilizing our lake, which again, we know phosphorus and nitrogen is a cause of the algal blooms. So it's definitely something we want to eliminate. We also spend a lot of money treating for those algal blooms. So it's great to have a free program that kind of benefits everybody. So there used to be, this program reduced population of geese in our lake from 300 in 2012 to about 30 geese by 2018. So imagine 300 geese in Beaver Dam Lake. So noisy, messy, and I get frequent complaints and emails about the geese. So the USDA also mentioned that they're able to do a roundup of adult geese if needed as well. So yes, so the island will be a major focal point. And as I also mentioned, reserves 1 and 2. But USDA also wants residents to contact them directly if you have a ton of geese on your lakefront property, or if you think you might have a nest on your lakefront property, that they could come out and access by boat. They came today for the first time this season, but they're coming every other week to treat for these geese. So I will put his information in the chat box, and I'll also put it in the email. His name is Tyler Delisle, and he gave us a cell phone and email to contact him directly. There have been a few geese over by you, Jason. Jason, you're over by 1 and 2, right? You're kind of over that way. So I know it was like a really yucky, messy situation on the swim beach over the summer too. So I was really excited. You have them at your house. You're over by 1 and 2 also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful walking around reserve too.
Yeah.
So that's only for the invasive species, which is predominantly just the Canadian geese. They will not be doing the mallard ducks or any other local.
Right. The swans will be left alone, as will the ducks. This is just the invasive species of the geese. They cause a problem for the flights out of Stewart. So there you have it. If you have any questions, check out that report on our website, or you can contact Tyler directly. Any other questions about the goose management program?
I just have a question regarding the island. Excuse me. years ago, there were fireplaces when I would go over there by the railroad. These fireplaces were where these eggs and these Canadian geese made their nests on these fireplaces. If those fireplaces, there was one at one end of the island, there was another one at the other end. If they could be eliminated, do away with these fireplaces, I think that would be a beginning of trying to exterminate them. When you say they already know about the island, I don't know any other place except that you said, Fred, you said, I know probably that they do harbor down where we have that piece of property on the lake. It's barren, and they do come on the shore and do their duty and all that. But I think the problem is over at the island, and we should try to get rid of those fireplaces.
Okay, so we'll have more of a conversation with them. I'm not familiar with the fireplaces that are over there, but we can,
There's one on one end of the island and one at the other end. I was on that island, not to extend this meeting, but I was with two other gentlemen. And we went from one fireplace to the other fireplace. And my friend Joe Martin, he said, Nick, he was educating me that the male and the female both lay on the eggs. So they can help to hatch the eggs. But when we went from one to the other, these geese came in flying at us.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe
Real sense of humor.
raised his arms up and he started flying at them. Thank God they turned around and went the other way.
Yeah, they're
But
nasty.
They are numerous, and there was these blue eggs like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say the Navy Department, is it the Reserve?
The aviation, it's USDA that comes and does it, but it's through an aviation grant. Yeah, so we'll have them investigate more about those causes and inform us about what that might be. But if you see USDA boats and cars poking around the lake, that's what they're doing. And if they need your property to access the goose eggs, they'll talk to you directly. I know several residents already have written agreements with them to do that. So they're not going to come on your property unless you ask them to be there, and they're only going to they'll contact you in advance. Usually like a piece of paper you have to sign to give them the ability to be there.
That was my question.
So-
Because everything, including the island, that is private property.
Yeah.
There's 3 residents that actually own the island. Before anybody can go on there, they have to have permission.
Yeah, there are certain.
Residents have to give
Yes.
permission, just like your land, you would have to give the USDA permission to come onto your lot to actually addle the eggs.
No.
Yeah. Shouldn't have been
What
there.
about, you mentioned that the swans, they're non-touchable, okay, so you leave those alone. What about the herons?
They're not touchable.
They're not touchable.
There you go.
The blue herons, yeah, they're not targeting those guys. They're
It's only the
just
Canadian.
just specifically the Canadian geese.
And what about those very little ducks that there's dozens of right now?
Oh, the
Not
diver
little
ducks, the
ducks.
diver ducks, yeah.
Only the Canadian geese.
No blue jays. No,
No, nothing. Woodpeckers, nothing, just the Canadian geese. So, alrighty, so, community events. Want to talk about the Easter Bunny ride around. Thank you so much to those who participated. It's the 3rd time we've driven around with the Easter Bunny. Thank you so much, Larry Weinberg, for a huge candy donation. Kevin Boyle for his extra special participation. Shake his furry hand when you see him. And thank you to the Salisbury Mills Fire Department for providing us with a sweet new ride for the Easter Bunny this year. It was a great time, as always. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The spring yard sale, Christine Little will be championing this effort again. The dates will be May 21st with a rain date of May 22nd. It's going to be free again this year. The paperwork is due back to Christine by May 9th. Paperwork has been sent out via email several times already, and every day I still get requests for the paperwork. So check your, if you're looking for it, just go ahead and give the Beaver Dam email a search and look at the last couple of them. And it's an attachment as a PDF or a Word document. Please don't send it back to me. I love you guys, but I don't want your yard sale information. There's an address for Christine Little. Please give it to her, or you can email it to the physical address, or I'm sorry, snail mail it to the physical address of this building. Please don't put it in the drop box outside the door either. Because then you're leaving your address and it can just be pulled out, do it through the mail if you're gonna do snail mail. Mention of the email listserv. So the email listserv is only as good as the people that are on it. So if you have new neighbors, tell them about it. Tell them to email bdlboard@gmail.com. Obviously you guys all have because you got the Zoom invite to this meeting. But if you got new people, let them know. And so they can get signed up and signed on because we have a lot of new folks in the neighborhood. I know we all love our social media pages, but that is not an official communication channel of this board. Sometimes if a question is very easy to answer, we'll throw out an answer there. But if anything is nuanced, we can't answer it on social media, as you can imagine why. So please email bdlboard@gmail.com if you have any specific questions that you want addressed here in this meeting or you want addressed to the entire board. That's not an official channel. And we're realizing now as we have the yard sale come up, we advertise that the yard sale is existing and now we're getting a bunch of people requesting to be added to the email list. So it's becoming obvious a lot of people are relying on social media for their neighborhood news and it means you're not getting the full picture. So make sure your neighbors sign up. Let's see. And I want to answer the couple questions from the beginning here real quick about the dam. Let's see, Joe asked, isn't this under guarantee by the contractor? Why did this happen? And why aren't they responsible to fix it? It's part of the old section of the dam and it was not a pipe. That pipe was not in the scope of the new work of the dam. I think everybody that looked at the situation felt that it should have been looked at that time, but it wasn't in the scope of the work. So the contractor actually had nothing to do with it. In the contract on Orange County website, is there a duty to inform of the leak while reconstruction was underway? They found the leak in, what month are we in? They found the leak in, I think they informed us of it in February, and I think they found it just before that. So it wasn't found when construction was underway. I have a question from Donna. Can someone recommend the type of material that is allowed to be used for a floating dock not to sway? The company we are using recommended that a few pipes be used, but I told them they are not allowed in our lake for the environment and health of our lake. Please advise. Okay, Donna, I know you're working with DEC and all of that with your permits because we've already been in touch. Something to steady floating docks.
It is totally based on the design of the dock. If they want, they can contact me personally.
Okay. So I will forward, Don, I have your emails already. I'll forward directly to Wally and you guys can communicate. Let's see, Jason, EPA told me that my pipes are fine. They're just hammered in ice. Okay, so seems like Jason has some suggestions for you. Do we have any other questions right now? Okay. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any board member comments. I know, Larry, you had a resident talk to you about the Cornwall Social Club, and you just wanted to make a brief mention of that before we log off tonight.
Hello, everybody. So up at the corner of Route 94 and Shore near Cumberland Farms, the former Penning's Nursery, who's been out of business for a number of years, there's been some activity there over the last 4 or 5 years. Was supposed to be turned into a pickleball and a restaurant, and I don't know what happened, but that all kind of fell apart. Somebody else has purchased the property, and rumor has it that they want to build a few restaurants and maybe a social area for perhaps a courtyard where they might have musical events and things like that, with 80+ parking spaces. Here's the concern that we have. Look, we're all happy to see more businesses come in and cut down the tax base and bring new fanfare to our area. The concern is that Penning's used to run their business and all the traffic would be routed in and out of their establishment on Route 94. And this current plan, from what was come to light from people coming to me, bringing me some documents, is that the new business is proposing that they would angle all traffic through the Shore Drive entrance only, which used to be only used for delivery purposes. Now, our lake board is not the area where we can really discuss this, but the town board of Cornwall is the area to discuss this. So we're using this format and our forum right now to reach out to the community. So if you have concerns and you want to address this, and rightfully so, we can't do that, but you can. So please reach out to your town board as far as Cornwall, attend the meetings, send your letters and contact those folks. If you're all for this developing of the property, which would be great. We all want to see something nice happen, but we don't want to have a big traffic jam at the end of Shore Drive and 94. So we just wanted to use our venue here while we're gathered together to say, look, the direction to go in. We appreciate everything being pointed towards us, which is, super for communication needs, but to effectively manage what's happening and to make a real impact, we have to go to the town board.
Do you know when the next town board meeting is?
We had on the 19th, so hence the reason I sent out that email to on the board on our Facebook page, because I wanted to get out ahead of it before we had our meeting, after that. So since we were scheduled here for the 20th and their meeting was on the 19th. Now we have a lot of intelligent people who are on our Facebook page and they've got great comments. Look, if you know better or the direction that we should be going in, and maybe there's a small, variance in agreements of this and that, feel free, take the lead and organize something, get people together and head over to the Cornwall Town Hall and make a difference. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank
Thank you, Larry.
Any other resident questions? No, I'm over time. I never go over time. Sorry, guys.
I have a board question for you.
You have a board question for me?
Well, it's actually a resident question through a board member, me. The parking decals, the 2020s, are we doing new ones this year or are we sticking?
We've decided a couple of months ago, if I remember, that the ones with present stickers are now going to be good through 2024.
Okay, so all the people that have 2020 stickers on their car are good through 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
I have the same, I've read the question. Reserve 1, I was asked if there was going to be an effort to clean up floating debris, volunteer based, because they came to me with that.
That's a good question. So the question is a volunteer effort going to happen at Reserve 1? Yes, right. That's the right answer. Yes. So the other question that I have would be, let's see if it takes a full day over on the north end of the lake with the machine. If not, then we move forward and do some kind of volunteer effort. I hate to
The only thing with that vehicle is that when it's localized down in reserve, it can move around in that little area pretty quickly. But if to go on the water from down there to over there would probably take around 4 days.
It's the same. It's the same situation as like the Marsh Master
Exactly.
or whatever it was.
Exactly. So they would have to trailer it over and be on lunch and everything.
Okay. All right. So if there needs to be, then there shall be a volunteer effort. The water is cold though still, Chris. It's not like over the summer we get in there with breaks.
One thing I planned on doing, and Mr. Procrastination hasn't done it yet, is to put on my muck boots and just see how far out I can safely walk, just get volunteers to pull with rakes.
Might have to pull you back out.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So stay tuned for more information on a possible volunteer effort of fishing Fred out of the water by Reserve
Well,
1.
we had talked about this
Yeah.
rake or something.
Yeah, we have some rakes
It's
that we
their
can.
income.
So,
On our
okay.
purchase list.
All right. So Reserve 1 volunteer effort. Okay, cool. Oh, and I'm going to send out via email. A resident contacted me regarding the Cornwall Public Libraries having a recycling event, and if our community wants to participate in it, I'm going to give you some information about that via email. And then the last thing that I have is that at the next meeting in May, we're going to discuss resident input on next year's budget. So if you have ideas for what you want to do at the lake, please plan to attend in May. I would ask the best way to do this so that we can be informed when we're talking to you about it is email it to us in advance. This is inclusive of, but in addition to all of the lake health stuff that we talked about tonight and the restocking stuff that we talked about tonight, this is other initiatives that you may be interested in or want to see considered, or you think that the lake could use or need. So email bdlboard@gmail.com. We would love some resident input on purchases for next year. That's all I have. Does anyone have anything else?
I move we adjourn.
Red motions to adjourn.
Nick, you got some? Asking our vast audience here.
We've in-person people. All right. I see nothing further in the chat box. Again, if you have more questions, you can email them. We're happy to answer it that way too. All right. Thank you guys so much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, good night.
Good night.